Today, we're going to unpack the Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación, or CJNG. They're one of the most powerful and, frankly, most feared criminal organizations on the entire planet. We're going to see exactly how they built an empire on pure violence and influence.
Okay, just imagine this for a second. You're at the zoo in Guadalajara, Mexico's second biggest city. All of a sudden, the whole city just erupts into chaos. I'm talking cars on fire, roads completely blocked off, and officials are screaming for everyone to shelter in place. It gets so bad that the safest place for more than 1,000 people, including little kids and the elderly, is to stay locked inside the zoo overnight. This isn't a movie. This actually happened.
And that day in Guadalajara, that was just the tip of the iceberg. Around that time, this wave of coordinated violence just swept across multiple states. Cartel gunmen went on an absolute rampage, attacking regular civilian businesses and cars. Airports were thrown into chaos. Foreign governments were issuing urgent warnings telling their citizens do not go outside. For a moment, the entire country was just paralyzed by fear. And all of this chaos, all of this terror, it was all a reaction to one single event. One man being killed in a high-risk military operation. So that's the big question, isn't it? How did one person get so powerful that his death could trigger a nationwide attack and bring a country to its knees? That's what we're going to break down.
The man at the center of it all was Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes. You've probably heard of him by his alias El Mencho. For more than a decade, he was the undisputed leader of the CJNG, and yeah, one of the most wanted men in the world. But here's the thing, he was notoriously elusive.
And this is a really important point. We've all heard of guys like El Chapo, right? He almost had this public persona. But Al Mencho? Totally different. As this DEA agent put it, you just didn't meet him. He was a ghost. He kept an incredibly low profile, which, just made him that much more feared, and a whole lot harder to track. So this was the man behind the myth. He led the CJNG with an absolute iron fist, and he dodged capture for more than 10 years. And it wasn't just luck. It was a sophisticated web of counterintelligence and deep systemic corruption. The people hunting him said he had zero regard for human life, and that trait really defined his cartel's brutal climb to the top. To really get a handle on El Mencho's power, you have to understand what he created, the CJNG. This was not just another gang. They operated on a completely different level, almost like a newer, much more aggressive species of criminal organization. And their rise, well, it was unbelievably fast. They basically popped up in 2010 from the leftover pieces of other cartels. By 2013, they were a dominant force all on their own. Just 2 years after that, both Mexico and the US called them a top priority threat. And by 2022, they had a presence in a fifth of all municipalities in Mexico. That's just a staggering speed of expansion. So how did they grow so fast? Well, try to think of them less like a traditional cartel and more like a brutal multinational corporation that runs on a franchise model. See, they didn't just conquer territory. They absorbed smaller, so-called orphan criminal groups that got left behind when the government took out the leaders of other gangs. This let them suck up manpower and territory at an incredible rate. And their reach went truly global. According to the DEA, the CJNG has a presence in over 40 countries. This wasn't just a Mexican problem anymore. They were a massive threat to international security, running drug labs and using huge distribution networks to pump their products into the US and pretty much everywhere else. And the way they recruited their foot soldiers was just as cynical and calculated as their business strategy. Get this, they'd post fake job ads on Facebook, promising real work as a security guard, maybe even a police officer. People who were desperate for work would apply, get told, congratulations, you got the job, and then they'd be forced into these brutal training camps to become cartel hitmen. It's a terrifyingly effective way to build an army. But, expanding is one thing, actually holding on to territory is another. And this is where the CJNG's evil genius is at its most sinister. They basically mastered what experts call criminal governance, which is a fancy way of saying they wrote the playbook on how to control a population when the actual government can't or won't. Before we go any deeper, you gotta understand a key term. In the world of Mexican cartels, a plaza is everything. It's not just a town square. It's a strategic territory, a city, a port, a whole state. It's the prize they kill for. If you control the plaza, you control the trafficking routes, the local businesses, the people. You control everything. The CJNG's system for controlling a plaza is two-sided. On one side, you have plomo, which means lead. This is the stuff of nightmares, spectacular, very public violence, using military-grade stuff like drones and armored tanks. It's all about pure terror. But on the other side, you have plata, or silver. This is their calculated campaign to win hearts and minds, giving out toys for Christmas, sponsoring town festivals, and even punishing petty criminals to create a twisted sense of order. It's this terrifyingly effective one-two punch of fear and favors. And at the very heart of how they corrupt the state is this infamous phrase, plata o plomo, silver or lead. It's the choice they give to cops, politicians, judges, everyone. Take the bribe and look the other way, or take a bullet. This simple, brutal logic is how they hollow out institutions from the inside out, making sure they can act without consequences. And this quote from a local resident, it's just incredibly revealing. By stepping into the void left by the government and providing their own twisted form of justice, like punishing local thieves, the CJNG creates this thin, fear-based legitimacy. When people feel like the real authorities can't protect them, well, they might just turn to the devil they know, the one that at least gets things done. So, let's circle all the way back to where we started, that operation that killed El Mencho. On the surface, it looks like a clear win for the authorities, right? But when you really look at the aftermath, you have to ask, was it a Pyrrhic victory? You know, a victory that comes at such a high cost, it's almost not worth it? And let's be clear, tactically, this was a massive achievement. El Mencho had been a ghost for over a decade, so taking him out was, as one analysis put it, a genuine operational success. It showed that Mexican security forces had improved their intelligence and coordination. They finally got their man. But the organization he built, it didn't just fall apart. The chaos that came after his death, it's been described as a cartel stress response. It's almost like a headless animal lashing out. It proved that the CJNG was this complex organism, able to react violently and in a coordinated way even after losing its brain. The key takeaway here is, you can kill the king, but the kingdom is still standing. And this brings us to this central paradox of Mexico's security problem, which you can see right here in the data. According to the official numbers, big crimes like kidnapping are actually going down. But at the exact same time, over 63% of the public says they feel unsafe. There's this huge disconnect between the numbers on a spreadsheet and how people actually feel living their daily lives. The fear is still there, no matter what the stats say. Which leaves us with this final, really unsettling question. The kingpin strategy, taking out the leaders, has been the main approach for decades now. And yeah, it can get you some tactical wins. But the violence and the fear often stay, or sometimes they even get worse as these groups splinter. So if cutting off the Hydra's head doesn't kill it, and just makes more heads grow back, what's the actual path to real, lasting peace? That's the question that leaders and citizens are still desperately trying to answer.